I'm Dale Smith for Looney Politics, and the COVID-19 pandemic has meant that Parliament is now suspended. So what does this mean for the ongoing operations of government? Well, first of all, we need to remember that government is cabinet and not Parliament. So cabinet is still meeting. They're having teleconferences every day on the issues and have been rolling out stimulus packages and so on. So that's still carrying on. What Parliament's role in this has been to ensure that money flows so that government can continue to operate. So before the House of Commons and then later the Senate suspended, they each passed supply bills, which meant that there's enough money within the civil service to continue to run government programs and services. But what also happened was a special warrants bill, which is unusual in that what it does is it allows the government to continue to make spending decisions without having parliamentary approval. Normally, if the government needs more money for something, it needs to go back to Parliament and say, we need money, please give it to us, and Parliament will say yay or nay. They pretty much always say yay, but you get the point. What happened in this case, however, is they said, because of the situation, we're going to give you essentially carte blanche to spend as you see fit while Parliament is not going to sit. And in order to ensure that government doesn't try and do anything too crazy with it, they've also ensured as part of this that the Auditor General will have an oversight role on any of these kinds of spending measures that happen. So there is still some level of oversight, even if it isn't from Parliament itself. The other thing to note is that even though they've got this special warrant, if they have to do anything around changing EI rules or putting in particular tax measures as a way of dealing economically with the crisis that's developing as a result of this pandemic, as well as the oil price crash that's happening simultaneously, what they've also agreed to do is create special measures so that a small number of MPs can return to Parliament and pass those kinds of measures if need be as part of a Ways and Means motion. So what they've essentially said is that a proportionate number of MPs from each party would be able to each come to Ottawa, and they've also specified that these would be MPs who wouldn't need to travel by plane. So MPs that are somewhat more local in that regard, and they would each make it to Ottawa in order to have a small number of MPs to pass any of these Ways and Means motions that the government would require in that interim period, if that's what it's going to take. Remember that the quorum in the House of Commons is 20, so there would need to be 20 MPs from the various parties in the proportionate amounts in order to reflect the seat counts. And they would be recalled for a very special brief session where the government could say, here's the Ways and Means motion, do you want to adopt it? And then that frees government to be able to take those measures while the rest of Parliament remains suspended for the duration in order to not worry about any potential impacts with the pandemic. The only other thing to note is that even though Parliament is suspending for 5 weeks, there were only 2 planned sitting weeks as part of that. So they're not missing too many days, and it remains to be seen whether they will make them up at some point, possibly in end of June, early July, or if parties will simply agree to let them go as a result. Although the blog today sounded like they were very interested in having those sitting days later. So we'll see as that develops. But for the time being, this is what a suspended Parliament for a pandemic is going to look like. For Looney Politics, I'm Dale Smith.